Jin's furious confrontation with Taehyung leaves BTS stunned until Jungkook's unexpected reaction exposes a painful secret. "Don't you dare walk away from me, Taehyung!" The shout cracked through the rehearsal room so violently that the music seemed to die a second time. Taehyung stopped with one hand still wrapped around the metal handle of the studio door. His shoulders rose slightly beneath his black hoodie. He did not turn around. Behind him, Jin stood frozen near the center of the room, chest heaving, jaw clenched so tightly that a muscle jumped beneath his cheek. RM had stopped moving. J-Hope's hand remained suspended over the tablet controlling the speakers. Suga slowly lowered the bottle of water he had been drinking. Jimin stared between Jin and Taehyung, his expression changing from confusion to alarm. And Jungkook did not move at all. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The air conditioner hummed above them. Somewhere beyond the thick studio walls, a distant elevator bell chimed. The red recording light over the door continued blinking, indifferent to the tension that had suddenly filled the room. Taehyung finally turned. His face was calm. Too calm. "What?" he asked. Jin laughed once, but there was nothing humorous in it. "What?" His voice trembled. "You're asking me what?" Taehyung's fingers slowly released the door handle. "I don't know what you're talking about." "That's exactly the problem." Jin stepped forward. "You never know." Taehyung's eyes narrowed. Jimin immediately moved between them. "Hyung, but no." Jin lifted a hand. "Stay out of this." Jimin stopped. Jin's gaze remained fixed on Taehyung. "You think everyone is stupid?" Taehyung swallowed. "No." "Then tell me why you did it." Silence. Taehyung looked toward RM. RM's expression tightened. "Jin, maybe we should slow down." "No." Jin's voice cracked again. "Not this time." Taehyung looked at the floor. Jin took another step. 3 days. Taehyung's head lifted. "What? You've been lying to us for 3 days." "I haven't lied. You disappeared after rehearsal. I had somewhere to go. You stopped answering messages. My phone died. You missed dinner. I wasn't hungry. You showed up this morning with blood on your sleeve." Taehyung's face changed, only slightly, but Jungkook noticed. His eyes moved immediately to Taehyung's left arm. The black sleeve covered everything except a tiny reddish stain near the cuff. Jungkook stared at it, then at Taehyung, then at Jin. "What happened?" Jungkook asked. Nobody answered. Jin's breathing grew heavier. "That's what I've been asking him." Taehyung pulled his sleeve down. "It's nothing." Jin's expression hardened. "Nothing?" "Yes." "You expect us to believe that?" "I don't expect anything." "Then why are you hiding it?" Taehyung's lips parted. No answer came. Jin shook his head. "You know what makes me angry?" Taehyung looked at him. "You keep deciding that protecting us means shutting us out." The words landed differently. Taehyung's eyes flickered. Jin's anger remained, but something beneath it was beginning to show. Fear. "You think you're the only one who can carry things?" Jin asked. Taehyung looked away. "You think because you don't tell us we don't worry?" His voice softened for half a second. Then it broke again. "I called you 17 times." Taehyung closed his eyes. Jin laughed bitterly. 17? I know. You know? I saw the calls. Then why didn't you answer? Taehyung opened his eyes. Because I couldn't. Why? I just couldn't. Jin's fist tightened. That isn't an answer. It's the only one I have. The room became silent again. Jungkook slowly stood. The chair legs scraped against the floor. Everyone looked at him. Jungkook did not look at anyone except Taehyung. "Show me your arm." Taehyung shook his head. "Jungkook, show me." His voice wasn't loud. That's what made everyone stop. There was no anger in it, no accusation, only something dangerously steady. Taehyung looked at him. For a moment, neither moved. Then Taehyung whispered, "It's fine." Jungkook took one step closer. "Don't say that." Taehyung's eyes flickered. "Don't say you're fine when you're not." Something in Taehyung's expression cracked. Just for a second. Jin sighed, RM sighed, Jimin sighed. But Jungkook saw it first. He always did. Taehyung slowly pulled back his sleeve. The room went still. A bandage wrapped around his forearm. Not a small one. Not something that could be dismissed as a scratch. The white gauze was stained through in one place, a dark red patch visible beneath the fabric. Jimin covered his mouth. J-Hope whispered, "Oh my God." Suga's expression changed completely. RM stepped forward. "Taehyung, I told you it was nothing." Jin stared at the bandage. His anger disappeared so quickly that it almost looked frightening. What happened? Taehyung said nothing. Jin's voice dropped. "Who did that?" Taehyung looked down. "I did." Jungkook's eyes sharpened. "What?" Taehyung shook his head. "I mean, it happened because of me." "That isn't what I asked." Jungkook stepped closer. "Who hurt you?" Taehyung looked at him. His eyes were tired. "Does it matter?" "Yes." The answer came instantly. Jungkook's voice shook. "It matters." Taehyung looked away. Jin slowly sat down on the edge of the couch. For the first time since the argument began, he looked exhausted. "Taehyung," Jin whispered. "Please." Taehyung's jaw trembled. Nobody spoke. Then he finally said, "Someone followed me." The words were barely audible. J-Hope's face went pale. "Followed you?" Taehyung nodded. "For how long?" "I don't know." "Who?" "I don't know." "Why?" "I don't know." Jin stood again. "Then why didn't you tell us?" Taehyung's eyes filled with frustration. "Because I knew this would happen." He gestured around the room. "Everyone would panic. Everyone would ask questions. Everyone would try to fix it. Because we care. I know. Then let us." "I can't." The scream echoed against the walls. Taehyung froze. Jin froze too. And Jungkook. Jungkook's expression changed. He had heard that tone before. Not from Taehyung. From himself. The tone of someone who had been holding something together with both hands and was suddenly terrified that if he let go, everything would collapse. Taehyung looked toward the floor. His breathing became uneven. "I can't keep being the reason everyone worries." Jin stared at him. "You are not a reason to worry." Taehyung laughed softly. "You say that now. What is that supposed to mean?" Taehyung's eyes lifted. "You all have enough problems." Jin's face tightened. "We decide that." "You don't understand." "Then explain it." Taehyung shook his head. "I tried." "When?" "Every time I almost said something." "Almost isn't saying it." "I know." "Then say it now." Taehyung stared at him. His lips trembled. But before he could answer, Jungkook spoke. "Jin." Everyone turned. Jungkook looked at him. "Stop." The word was quiet. Jin blinked. "What?" Jungkook's gaze remained steady. "Stop yelling at him." The room fell silent. Taehyung's head snapped toward Jungkook. Jungkook continued. "And you're making him more scared." Jin opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Jungkook looked at Taehyung. "You don't have to explain everything right now." Taehyung stared at him. "But you do have to stop pretending you're alone." Taehyung's eyes filled with tears. He quickly turned away. Jungkook took another step. "You can be angry." Taehyung wiped his cheek. "You can be embarrassed." Another tear fell. "You can even tell us to leave you alone for a while." Jungkook's voice softened. "But don't disappear." Taehyung covered his face with one hand. His shoulders shook. Jin looked away. His eyes turned red. Jimin lowered his head. J-Hope quietly placed a tablet on the floor. Suga leaned back against a wall, staring at nothing. RM exhaled slowly. The confrontation that had begun like a storm had suddenly become something else. Something fragile. Something none of them knew how to touch without breaking. Jungkook stood in front of Taehyung. He didn't hug him. He didn't force him to speak. He simply stayed. Taehyung eventually lowered his hand. "I was afraid," he whispered. Jungkook nodded. "I know. I thought, if I told you," his voice broke, you'd all look at me differently. Jungkook's expression softened. We're already looking at you. Taehyung gave a weak, broken laugh. And? Jungkook answered without hesitation. You're still Taehyung. That was all it took. Taehyung's face crumpled. Jin turned away as tears finally escaped his eyes. He pressed his palms against his face. Damn it, he whispered. J-Hope walked over and placed a hand on Jin's shoulder. Jin didn't move. After a moment, Jin lowered his hands. He looked at Taehyung. I shouldn't have screamed. Taehyung looked back. Jin swallowed. I was scared. Taehyung's eyes softened. I know. No. Jin shook his head. You don't. He took a slow breath. I was scared because I thought something had happened to you and I couldn't do anything. Taehyung remained silent. Jin continued. And when I'm scared, sometimes I get angry because anger feels easier. The room remained quiet. Taehyung slowly nodded. I understand. Jin stepped closer. I'm sorry. Taehyung looked down at the bandage, then back at Jin. I'm sorry too. For what? For making you worry. Jin shook his head. Don't apologize for being hurt. Taehyung's lips trembled. Jin reached out. He hesitated, then placed his hand gently on Taehyung's shoulder. Taehyung didn't pull away. For several seconds, they stood like that. No dramatic words, no shouting. Just two people trying to cross a distance that had appeared between them without either realizing it. Jungkook watched quietly. Then his gaze fell again on Taehyung's bandage. Something bothered him. The wound was too carefully wrapped, too clean, too deliberate. Someone had treated it, but Taehyung had said he had been alone. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Who bandaged that? Taehyung froze. Jin noticed. So someone did help you. Taehyung said nothing. Jungkook looked at him. Taehyung. The younger man's eyes dropped. I can't tell you. Jin's expression changed. Why? Taehyung looked toward the studio door. Because if I tell you who helped me... He stopped. Jungkook waited. Taehyung took a breath. Until you'll realize this is bigger than what happened to me. Nobody spoke. The words settled over them like dust after an explosion. RM's face became serious. What do you mean? Taehyung looked at each of them, then at Jungkook. I think someone is trying to get to all of us. Jungkook's expression went completely still. Jin's hand slipped from Taehyung's shoulder. Outside the room, footsteps passed down the hallway. None of them moved. Then Taehyung whispered, and I think they already know how to get close. The silence that followed was different from the one before. It wasn't empty. It was heavy with realization. Jungkook looked at the closed studio door, then at the others. Finally, he looked back at Taehyung. Whatever had started as an argument between Jin and Taehyung had become something none of them could dismiss as a misunderstanding. But for that moment, nobody rushed to the door. Nobody shouted. Nobody demanded answers. Jungkook simply reached for the chair beside him and pulled it toward Taehyung. Sit, he said quietly. Taehyung obeyed. Jin sat beside him. Jimin brought water. J-Hope found the first aid kit. Suga locked the studio door. RM turned off the music, and slowly, painfully, the seven of them gathered together in the same room again. Not because the danger had disappeared, not because every question had been answered, but because for the first time that night, Taehyung was no longer carrying the fear by himself. The room remained quiet as the rain began tapping softly against the windows. Jin looked at Taehyung. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. Jungkook gave him a small nod. And for the first time in 3 days, Taehyung allowed himself to breathe.
The rain had grown heavier by the time Jungkook noticed the shadow beneath the studio door, and the moment he saw it disappear, he knew someone had been standing outside listening. He slowly lifted his head from the first aid kit, his fingers still resting against the edge of the table, and looked towards Suga, who was standing closest to the entrance. Suga noticed the change in Jungkook's expression immediately. What? He whispered. Jungkook didn't answer. He raised one finger. Everyone followed his gaze. The studio fell silent again. Jin stopped speaking. Taehyung's hand tightened around the bottle of water Jimin had given him. RM looked toward the door. J-Hope's eyes moved to the security camera mounted above the hallway entrance. For several seconds nothing happened. Then came 3 soft knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Nobody breathed. "Don't open it," Jungkook said. His voice was low, almost emotionless. Jin turned toward him. "Who do you think it is?" "I don't know." "Then how do you know we shouldn't open the door?" Jungkook looked at him. "Because whoever was outside already knows we're here." Another knock came. This time it was louder. "Manager," J-Hope called cautiously. No answer. "Staff," RM tried. Silence. Suga walked closer to the door but stopped before touching the handle. He looked through the narrow security panel. His expression changed. "There's nobody there," Jin frowned. "What? The hallway is empty." Jungkook stood. "Move away." Suga stepped back. Jungkook approached the door slowly, his eyes fixed on the floor. Beneath the gap at the bottom of the door was a small white envelope. It had been pushed inside. Nobody spoke as Jungkook crouched down. "Don't touch it," RM said. Jungkook stopped. "Why? We don't know what it is." Jungkook stared at the envelope. "Then what do we do?" Suga answered from behind him. "We find out without touching it." J-Hope hurried toward the storage cabinet and returned with a pair of disposable gloves. He handed them to Jungkook. Jin immediately objected. "No, I'll do it." Jungkook shook his head. "No, Jungkook, Taehyung, stay back. I'm not letting you, and I'm not letting you either." The sharpness in Jungkook's voice stopped Jin. Taehyung watched him carefully. There was something different about Jungkook now. The softness that usually appeared whenever Taehyung was frightened had disappeared beneath a hard concentration. Jungkook slipped on the gloves, crouched again, and carefully picked up the envelope. There was no name on it, no address. Nothing except a single black mark drawn across the front, a vertical line. "What is that?" Jimin whispered. "I don't know," Jungkook said. He turned the envelope over. The seal had already been broken. Inside was a photograph. Jungkook pulled it out. His face went pale. "What?" RM asked. Jungkook didn't answer. He stared at the picture for several seconds before handing it to RM. RM's expression hardened the moment he saw it. "Where did you get this?" Jin asked. RM didn't answer. He passed the photograph to Suga. Suga looked down, then his eyes narrowed. J-Hope took it next. His lips parted. "That's us," Jimin whispered. The photograph showed all 7 members leaving the building 2 nights earlier. It had been taken from a distance. The angle was deliberately concealed behind a parked vehicle. Taehyung stood at the center of the group. Someone had circled him in red, but that wasn't the worst part. Written beneath the photograph were 6 words. "One of you already knows." Jin's face hardened. "This is a threat." "Obviously," Suga replied. "Who took it?" "Someone who has been watching us," RM said. Taehyung stared at the photograph. "I told you." Everyone turned toward him. "I told you someone was following me." Jin's expression changed. "Why didn't you tell us about this?" "Because I didn't have this." "You knew enough." "I was trying to handle it." "By yourself." Jin's voice rose again. Taehyung flinched. Jungkook immediately looked at Jin. "Taehyung." Jin stopped. He closed his eyes and inhaled slowly. "Sorry." Taehyung looked down. "It's okay." "No," Jin said. "It's not." He stepped closer. "I'm trying not to scream at you again." Taehyung almost smiled despite himself. "You're doing better." Jin gave him a tired look. "Don't test me." A small laugh escaped Jimin. It disappeared quickly. Nobody was truly relaxed. The photograph remained on the table between them. RM picked it up again. "There is something strange." "What?" J-Hope asked. RM pointed toward the photograph. "Look at the background." Suga leaned forward. "The building opposite us." "Exactly." RM zoomed in using his phone camera. "That's not an ordinary office." Jungkook stared. "It's the old production building." RM nodded. "The one that hasn't been used in years." Jin's eyes narrowed. "How could someone have taken this photograph from there?" "That's what we need to find out." Taehyung suddenly spoke. "No." Everyone looked at him. "We don't go there." "Why?" Suga asked. Taehyung's face tightened. "Because that's where I saw him." The room became silent. "Who?" Jungkook asked. Taehyung looked at him. "The person who followed me." "You saw him there?" "Yes." "What did he look like?" "I couldn't see his face." Jin's jaw clenched. "Then how do you know it was the same person?" "Because of the sound." Jimin frowned. "The sound?" Taehyung nodded. "A metal ring on his keychain." Nobody understood. Taehyung rubbed his thumb against the side of the bottle. It made this tiny clicking sound whenever he moved. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. "And you heard it again?" "Yes." "Where?" In the hallway, everyone looked toward the door. Suga immediately locked it again. When Taehyung hesitated, before you found the envelope, Jin stared at him. You heard someone outside, Taehyung nodded. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I wasn't sure. Jin stepped toward him. Taehyung. Wasn't sure, Taehyung suddenly shouted. Do you understand? I wasn't sure whether I was imagining it. His voice echoed. Every time I heard something, I thought maybe it was just me. Every time I saw someone, I wondered if I was becoming paranoid. I didn't want to walk into this room and tell everyone that some invisible person was following me when I couldn't even prove it. Jin's expression softened. You should have told us anyway. And what would you have done? Anything. Exactly. Taehyung's eyes flashed. You would have stopped everything, rehearsals, schedules, meetings. You would have blamed yourselves. Maybe because we should have known. No, Taehyung slammed the bottle onto the table. That's what I was trying to prevent. Jungkook stepped between them. Enough. Taehyung looked at him. Jungkook didn't raise his voice. Both of you. Jin exhaled and stepped back. Taehyung's shoulders dropped. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Suga said quietly, there's something else. He pointed at the photograph. The person who took this didn't just circle Taehyung. Everyone leaned closer. Suga turned the photograph sideways. Look at the reflections in the car window. Jimin squinted. Someone's there, exactly. The reflection showed a blurry figure standing behind the photographer, another person. So there were two people, J-Hope asked. Maybe, Suga said, or one person in a reflection. RM shook his head. No, look at the angle. He took the photograph from Suga. There are two shadows. Jungkook stared at the image. Then the person following Taehyung wasn't alone. Taehyung slowly sat down. His fingers began trembling. Jimin noticed and gently placed his hand over Taehyung's. Breathe. Taehyung swallowed. I'm trying. Jin looked at him. The guilt in his face was obvious now. Why didn't you tell me? Taehyung didn't answer immediately. When he finally did, his voice was quiet. Because you always try to protect everyone. Jin frowned. That's what older brothers do. Sometimes you forget that you're one of us. Jin stared at him. What? You carry everything too. Jin looked away. Taehyung continued. You make jokes when you're exhausted. You cook when you're angry. You clean when you're anxious. You pretend everything is normal because you think if you keep everyone laughing, nobody will notice you're scared. Jin's eyes became wet. Don't analyze me. Taehyung smiled faintly. You're not the only one who notices things. Jin laughed under his breath. You're impossible. You taught me. The tension broke for a second, then the lights flickered. Everyone looked up, once, twice. Then darkness swallowed the room. Jimin gasped. What happened? Stay where you are, RM said. Emergency lighting should have activated, but it didn't. The studio was completely dark. Jungkook heard someone move. Nobody move. His voice came from somewhere near Taehyung. Jungkook, Jimin called. I'm here. A chair scraped. Something hit the floor. Then came a sharp metallic click. Taehyung froze. That's it? What? Jin whispered. The keychain. Jungkook grabbed Taehyung's wrist. Where? Behind us. A sound came from the storage area, metal against metal. Suga moved first. Stay back. He reached for his phone flashlight. A beam of light cut through the darkness. The storage room door was open. It had been closed before. Who opened that? J-Hope whispered. Nobody answered. RM moved toward the door. Don't. Jungkook stopped him. Why? Because that's what they want. What do you mean? Jungkook looked at the open storage room. They want us to chase them. Suga nodded slowly. He's right. Jin stared into the darkness. Then what do we do? Wait. They waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30, nothing happened. Then Jungkook heard a whisper behind him. Jungkook, he turned. Taehyung was standing there. His face had gone white. What? I heard it again. The keychain, Taehyung nodded. From the other side. Jungkook turned toward the opposite wall. There was a maintenance door. It was supposed to be locked. The handle moved, slowly, once, twice, then stopped. Jin stepped forward. Who's there? No answer. I said who's there? Jin's voice echoed. The handle turned again. Then the door burst open. J-Hope screamed. A man in a dark hood rushed through the doorway. He didn't get far. Suga grabbed his arm. The man twisted violently, knocking Suga into the wall. Jungkook moved instantly. He caught the man's shoulder. The stranger shoved him backward. Jin lunged. Get him. The room exploded into chaos. Chairs crashed. Someone shouted. Taehyung stumbled backward. Jimin grabbed him. RM reached for the emergency phone. The stranger fought desperately, covering his face with one hand. Jungkook caught his wrist. Who are you? The man said nothing. Jin grabbed his hoodie. Why are you following Taehyung? The stranger twisted free and shoved Jin. Jungkook caught Jin before he hit the floor. Taehyung. Jin regained his balance and turned furious. You son of a don't, RM shouted. But the stranger was already running. He crossed the studio and disappeared through the hallway. Suga chased him. Jungkook followed. Jungkook, Taehyung shouted, but Jungkook didn't stop. The hallway lights flickered as they ran. The stranger moved fast. He reached the elevator and slammed the button. Suga was only a few meters behind him. Stop! The elevator doors opened. The stranger jumped inside. Jungkook reached the elevator just as the doors closed. His hand struck the metal. Damn it. Suga arrived beside him. He got away. Jungkook stared at the elevator display. No. What? He didn't, Suga frowned. Jungkook pointed toward the stairs. He went down. How do you know? The elevator hasn't moved. Suga looked at the display. Jungkook was right. The elevator remained on the same floor. They turned toward the stairwell. Footsteps echoed below. They ran 2 floors, 3, 4, then silence. Jungkook stopped. Where did he go? Suga listened. There. A door slammed somewhere below. They rushed down again. When they reached the basement, the corridor was empty. A small metal ring lay on the floor. Jungkook picked it up. A keychain, one plain silver ring with a tiny black metal charm. He stared at it. This is what Taehyung heard. Suga looked around. Then he wanted us to find it. Jungkook's expression darkened. Or he dropped it. Suga shook his head. People running from a group don't stop to leave evidence. Jungkook turned the keychain over. There was a tiny engraving on the metal charm. 3 letters. KTH. Jungkook froze. Suga stared at it. That's Taehyung's initials. Neither spoke. Then Jungkook's phone rang. It was Jin. Jungkook, Taehyung, come back now. Why? Jin's voice sounded strange. Taehyung is gone. Jungkook's blood turned cold. What? He was here 1 second ago. Where is he? I don't know. Jungkook looked at Suga. We're coming back. They ran upstairs. When they returned to the studio, the room was chaos. Jimin was crying. J-Hope was searching the hallway. RM was speaking rapidly into his phone. Jin stood frozen beside the table. Where's Taehyung? Jungkook demanded. Jin shook his head. I don't know. Who was with him? Jimin looked devastated. I only looked away for a second. Jungkook grabbed his shoulders. What happened? The lights came back on. I was talking to him. Then someone called my name from the hallway. I turned around. When I looked back, Taehyung was gone. Did he leave willingly? I don't know. Jungkook looked at the door. Was it locked? Suga answered. Yes. Jungkook's eyes hardened. Then how? RM approached. There's another exit. Where? RM pointed toward the rear wall. Maintenance passage. Jungkook stared at it. The same passage that man used. RM nodded. Jin suddenly spoke. I'm going after him. Jungkook turned. No. Jin's expression became furious. Don't tell me no. You're too emotional. He's my brother. He's mine too. Then move. Jungkook didn't move. Jin stepped closer. Get out of my way. Jungkook stared at him. If you go down there angry, you'll make a mistake. And if I stay here, you help us think. I don't want to think. Jin's voice broke. I want him back. The room went quiet. Jungkook looked at Jin for a long moment. Then he stepped aside. Fine. Jin stopped. Jungkook continued. But we're going together. Suga nodded. Everyone stays together. RM looked at them. Nobody separates. They moved through the maintenance passage. It smelled of dust, concrete, and damp metal. Their footsteps echoed. Jin called Taehyung's name repeatedly. Taehyung, no answer. Taehyung, nothing. They reached the basement exit. The door was open. Rain blew inside. On the ground outside was Taehyung's phone. Jin picked it up. The screen was cracked. A message was open. Jungkook leaned closer. The message had been sent from an unknown number. It contained only one sentence. You should have LISTNED 2 HIM. Jin's hands began shaking. Who is him? Jimin asked. Nobody knew. Then Jungkook noticed something else. The phone had a voice recording saved in the recent files, time-stamped 8 minutes earlier. Play it, Suga said. Jin pressed the screen. Taehyung's voice came through the speaker, quiet and frightened. If you find this, don't come looking for me. Jin's face collapsed. No, the recording continued. I didn't tell you everything because I knew you'd do exactly this. A pause. Then Taehyung whispered, the person following me isn't the person you should be afraid of. Everyone froze. There's someone inside our circle. The recording ended. Nobody spoke. Rain hammered against the pavement. Jin stared at the phone. No, RM's face had gone pale. We need to consider the possibility. No, Jin repeated it louder. Not one of us. Suga's eyes narrowed. He didn't say one of the 7. Jungkook looked at him. He said inside our circle. J-Hope whispered staff. Maybe, RM said. Managers, security, production, anyone with access. Jin shook his head. We're wasting time. Jungkook stared at the darkness beyond the parking area. No, Jin looked at him. What? Taehyung wanted us to hear that recording. Yes, which means he wanted us to understand something. Jungkook looked at the phone. He wasn't taken because he was helpless. Suga's eyes narrowed. You think he went with them willingly? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. I think Taehyung knew where they were taking him. Jin stared at him. You're saying he let himself be taken. I'm saying he may have chosen it. Why would he do that? To protect us. Jin's face hardened. That's exactly what he always does. He turned toward the rain, and I hate it. Jungkook followed. Then let's bring him home. Jin looked at him. How? Jungkook closed his fingers around the keychain he had found. Start with this. He held it up. And we find out why someone engraved Taehyung's initials on it. The others gathered around. RM studied the tiny metal charm. This wasn't made recently. How do you know? J-Hope asked. The engraving is worn. Suga took it from Jungkook. He rubbed his thumb across the surface. This is old. Jin's eyes narrowed. How old? Suga looked at Taehyung's abandoned phone. Maybe years. Nobody moved. Jungkook suddenly remembered something. Taehyung had this before. Jin looked at him. What? Not this exact keychain, the charm. When? Years ago, Jungkook's memory sharpened. He had a black keychain when we were trainees. He said someone gave it to him. Jin stared. Who? Jungkook shook his head. He never told me. Suga's expression changed. Then perhaps we finally know where to start. They returned to the building and searched the old records room. Dust covered the cabinets. RM found archived schedules. J-Hope found old photographs. Jin found nothing. Jungkook kept searching until he discovered a box labeled with a date from years earlier. Inside were training documents, staff lists, and old access cards. One name appeared repeatedly beside Taehyung's trainee records. Han Seojun, Jin frowned. Who is that? RM looked at the document. Former security consultant. Suga leaned closer. Former. He left the company years ago. Why? RM turned the page. His expression changed. There was an incident. What incident? RM hesitated. A trainee was threatened. Jin's face hardened. Who? RM looked up. Taehyung. The room went silent. Jungkook slowly sat down. What? RM continued reading. The report says Taehyung received anonymous messages during his trainee period. Jin's eyes widened. Why didn't we know? Because the report was closed. Closed by whom? RM looked at the signature. His face became pale. Han Seojun. Suga's expression hardened. The security consultant investigating the threat closed his own investigation. J-Hope whispered, That's impossible. Apparently not. Jin grabbed the file. Where is he now? RM checked the final page. Unknown. Jungkook stared at the keychain, then he never stopped. A phone rang, everyone froze, it wasn't any of theirs. The sound came from inside the box. Jin opened it. Beneath the papers was an old phone, the screen lit up. One message appeared. You finally remembered. Jungkook stepped backward. Another message arrived. Ask Jin what happened that night. Jin stared at the screen. What night? Nobody answered. Then a third message appeared. He knows. Jin's face drained of color. I don't know anything. Jungkook looked at him. Taehyung. Jin shook his head. I swear. The phone rang. Jin hesitated. Jungkook reached for it. Don't answer. Jin grabbed his wrist. No. Taehyung. If someone is trying to tell us something, I need to hear it. He pressed accept. Attic filled the room. Then a distorted voice whispered, You should have protected him. Jin's face tightened. Who are you? The voice laughed softly. You really don't remember. Jin's breathing became shallow. Remember what? The night Taehyung almost left. Jin froze. Jimin looked at him. What does that mean? The voice continued. Ask him. Ask who? Ask Taehyung why he never told you what happened. The call ended. Jin stared at the phone. I don't remember. Jungkook studied him. You do. No. Your face says you do. Jin looked at him angrily. Don't. Jungkook didn't back away. What happened? Jin closed his eyes. For several seconds he said nothing. Then he whispered, There was a night when Taehyung disappeared during trainee days. Everyone stared. He came back hours later, Jin continued. He wouldn't tell us where he'd been. And you? Suga asked. I was angry. Jin's voice broke. I thought he was being irresponsible. What happened next? Jin swallowed. I told him if he wanted to leave, He should just leave. Taehyung's earlier words suddenly echoed through Jungkook's memory. You keep deciding that protecting us means shutting us out. Jin covered his face. I didn't mean it. Jimin sat beside him. You were young. He was younger. Jin's eyes filled with tears, and he never forgot it. The room fell silent. Jungkook slowly stood. That's why he was afraid of telling you. Jin looked at him. Yes, he thought you would tell him to leave again. Jin's tears fell. I would never. But he didn't know that. Jin looked down. I know. Outside, the rain began to weaken. The night remained dark, but the room no longer felt completely trapped. They had found something, not Taehyung yet, not the person behind everything, but a piece of the past that had been buried for too long. Jungkook walked toward the window and stared at the city lights reflected in the wet glass. We're going to find him. Jin stood beside him. How do you know? Jungkook looked at the keychain in his palm. Because Taehyung left us a trail. Jin nodded slowly. And because he trusted you. Jungkook looked at him. He trusts all of us. Then let's make sure he never regrets it. For the first time that night, Jin's voice sounded steady. They remained together until dawn began to soften the darkness outside the windows. Nobody slept. Nobody pretended everything was fine. But they stayed. They searched through old records called trusted contacts, reconstructed forgotten memories, and listened again and again to Taehyung's final recording. Each time the same sentence seemed to carry a different meaning. There's someone inside our circle. By sunrise, Jungkook had written every name they needed to investigate on a sheet of paper. He looked at it quietly, then folded it and placed it in his pocket. Jin sat beside him, exhausted. What now? Jungkook looked toward the pale morning sky. Now we bring him home. Jin nodded. This time, neither of them needed to say anything else. The night had taken something from them, but it had also forced an old wound into the light. And as the first sunlight entered the room, Jungkook reached over and squeezed Jin's shoulder. Jin looked at him. Thank you. Jungkook gave him a tired smile. Don't thank me yet. Jin almost laughed. Why? Because we're going to have a very long day. Jin looked toward the others, all of whom were exhausted but still standing. Then let's make it count. No one knew where Taehyung was. No one knew who had taken him. No one knew whether the threat came from the past or the present. But for the first time, none of them were running from the truth. They were facing it together, quietly, stubbornly, and without letting go of one another. The phone rang before anyone could take their first breath after sunrise, and when Jungkook answered it, the voice on the other end said 3 words that made every face in the room change. He's not alone. Jungkook's fingers tightened around the phone. Who is this? The voice did not answer. Instead, a faint metallic clicking sounded through the speaker. Click, click, click. The same sound Taehyung had described. Jin stood so quickly that his chair scraped backward. Is that him? Jungkook raised one hand, signaling everyone to stay quiet. Where is Taehyung? He demanded. A distorted laugh came through the speaker. You keep asking the wrong question. Then give me the right one. Silence. Ask yourself why Taehyung trusted you enough to leave clues but not enough to tell you the truth. The call ended. Jungkook stared at the screen. Jin was already beside him. Call back. It's blocked. Try anyway. Jungkook did nothing. Again. Taehyung, there's no number. Then find it. I can't. Jin's breathing became heavier. Then what are we supposed to do? Jungkook looked at him. Think. Jin slammed his palm against the table. I've been thinking all night. The sound made Jimin jump. And he's still missing. Taehyung, Jimin said softly. Jin turned toward him, eyes red from exhaustion. Don't tell me to calm down. I wasn't going to. Good. Jimin looked at him for a long moment. I was going to say you're not the only one who is scared. Jin's anger faltered. Jimin's voice trembled. I'm scared too. Jin lowered his gaze. I know. Then stop acting like you have to carry all of this. Jin looked at him. I don't know how. Suga leaned against the wall, arms folded. None of us do. RM placed the old phone on the table. We need to separate what we know from what we're assuming. J-Hope looked at him. What do we know? Someone has been watching Taehyung. Someone had access to our building. Someone knew about Taehyung's past. Someone wanted us to find the old security records, and now someone claims Taehyung is alive. Jin looked sharply at him. Claims. RM nodded. We haven't seen him. But the voice said he's not alone. Exactly. Jungkook stared at the old phone, which means they expect us to believe Taehyung is with them. Or they want us to think that, Suga said. Jungkook looked toward him. You think he's dead? I didn't say that. But you thought it. Suga didn't answer. Jin's face hardened. Don't. Suga looked at him. I'm not saying he is. I'm saying we can't let fear make decisions for us. Fear is the only thing keeping me standing. Jin's voice cracked. Suga's expression softened. Then lean on us. Jin looked away. The room fell silent. For a moment, the 7 chairs surrounding the table seemed to represent a version of their lives that had existed only hours earlier. They had been rehearsing, complaining about schedules, teasing each other, arguing about food. Jin had yelled at Taehyung because he was terrified. Jungkook had told him to stop. Then the lights went out. A stranger appeared. Taehyung vanished. Now morning had arrived, but the night had not really ended. RM opened the old security file again. There's something I didn't tell you. Everyone looked at him. What? Jin asked. RM hesitated. The incident involving Taehyung wasn't the only incident involving Han Seojun. Suga straightened. What else? 3 other trainees reported receiving anonymous messages around the same period. Who? RM read the names. Jimin's eyes widened. Those trainees. What? J-Hope asked. Jimin shook his head. 2 of them left the company shortly afterward. Suga's eyes narrowed. And the third, RM closed the file, stayed. Jin looked at him. Who? RM didn't answer. Who? Jin demanded again. RM slowly raised his eyes. Me. Silence. Jin stared at him. You. RM nodded. I received messages too. Jungkook's eyes widened. Why didn't you tell us? RM gave a tired smile. Because they stopped. What did they say? RM looked down. At first they were harmless, things like you don't belong here. Then they became specific. Specific how? They mentioned things I had never told anyone. J-Hope swallowed. Like what? RM's fingers tightened around the file. My family, my insecurities, things I'd written in notebooks. Suga's expression darkened. And you never reported it. I did. To whom? Han Seojun. Jin's face went cold. The same man who closed the investigation. Yes. Jungkook slowly stood. Then this goes much deeper than Taehyung. RM nodded. I think it always did. Jin walked toward the window. Why would someone target trainees? Suga answered quietly. Control. Jin turned. Control what? People. That's not enough. It might be. Suga's eyes moved around the room. A person who studies someone long enough can manipulate them without ever touching them. Jimin whispered, fear. Exactly. Jungkook looked down at the photograph. They've been studying us. J-Hope's phone suddenly vibrated. He looked at it. His face changed. Guys, everyone turned. What? He held up the screen. A message had arrived from an unknown account. It contained a photograph of Taehyung sitting in a dark room. Jin rushed toward him. Is he alive? J-Hope zoomed in. Taehyung was sitting on a chair, head lowered, his injured arm still bandaged. His clothes were the same as the night before. There was no visible blood, no obvious injury beyond the bandage. He's alive, Jimin whispered. Jin grabbed the phone. Where is this? No location data, J-Hope said. Look at the wall. Jungkook leaned closer. Behind Taehyung was a narrow window with metal bars. On the wall beside him was a faded red number. 14, Suga stared. Room 14. RM frowned. Or floor 14. There is no 14th floor in this building, J-Hope said. Jungkook shook his head. Not this building. He looked at the photograph again. The wall is old. Suga moved closer. Could be the abandoned production facility. RM shook his head. That place has 12 floors. Then somewhere else. Jin's eyes remained fixed on Taehyung's face. He's looking down. Maybe he's unconscious, Jimin said. No, Jungkook shook his head. Look at his fingers. Everyone stared. Taehyung's right hand rested against his knee. 2 fingers were extended, then 1, then 2 again. He's signaling. Jin's eyes widened. How do you know? Because he used to do that when we were trainees, Jimin remembered. When we played that stupid guessing game, Jungkook nodded. 2 meant danger, 1 meant safe. Jin's voice dropped. Then he's saying danger. Yes. RM took the phone. Can we enhance the image? J-Hope opened an editing application. They enlarged the photograph. In the corner of the window, barely visible, was a reflection. A second figure stood outside the room. The person's face was obscured, but the hand was visible. A silver ring hung from 1 finger. Jungkook froze. That ring. Jin looked at him. What? I've seen it. Where? Jungkook didn't answer immediately. His memory searched backward, a staff meeting, a rehearsal, a backstage corridor, a security briefing, then it came. Han Seojun, Suga's eyes narrowed. You saw the ring on him, Jungkook nodded. Years ago. RM looked at the photograph. Then he may still be alive. Jin's expression hardened. Find him. We don't know where he is. Then find out. We will. No. Jin slammed his hand on the table. We don't have time for we will. Taehyung is somewhere with him. RM's voice became firm. And if we rush blindly, we may make things worse. Worse? Jin turned on him. How can it get worse? It can. RM stepped closer. If they are monitoring us, they want exactly this reaction. Then what do you suggest? We make them think we're doing what they expect. Jungkook looked at him. You want to use ourselves as bait? RM didn't answer. Jin immediately said no. Suga looked at RM. He's right. Jin turned. You're agreeing with this? Not completely. Then say something useful. Suga looked directly at him. We need someone they think is vulnerable. Jin's face hardened. Nobody is using Taehyung. He's already being used. Then not another member. Jungkook spoke quietly. Use me. Everyone turned. Jin's expression changed instantly. No. Jungkook looked at him. They expect us to protect Taehyung. Exactly. So they won't expect me to walk straight toward them. Jungkook. Taehyung. No, Jungkook stepped closer. You said last night that you wanted him back. Jin stared at him. I do. Then trust me. I trust you, that's why I'm saying no. Jungkook's jaw tightened. You can't protect everyone by locking them in a room. Jin's eyes flashed. And you can't protect everyone by throwing yourself into danger. Maybe someone has to. No, Jin shouted. The word echoed through the room. Jungkook didn't move. Jin's chest rose and fell rapidly. I already made that mistake once. Everyone became quiet. Jungkook looked at him. What mistake? Jin looked down. Telling someone they should leave. Taehyung. Yes, Jin's voice dropped. That night years ago, he was overwhelmed. He wanted to disappear. I was angry. I told him if he wanted out, he should go. He swallowed. I thought he'd come back in an hour. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. And he didn't. Jin shook his head. He came back after midnight. Jungkook watched him. What happened while he was gone? Jin closed his eyes. I don't know. Suga's expression changed. Maybe that's what this is about. Jin opened his eyes. What? Someone knows what happened that night. And maybe they've been waiting for us to remember. RM looked toward the file. Then we need to find the original report. J-Hope frowned. It's already here. No, RM shook his head. This is a copy. How do you know? Because the original investigation number is missing. Suga stood. Then someone removed it. Exactly. Jungkook looked at the photograph of Taehyung. Let's find the original. They spent the next hour searching every archive they could access. The tension grew with every minute. Jin repeatedly checked his phone. Jimin kept replaying the photograph. J-Hope contacted trusted staff. RM searched internal databases. Suga searched old news reports. Jungkook stayed silent. He was thinking. Finally, he said, I know where the original could be. Everyone looked at him. Where? The old security office. Jin frowned. The abandoned building. Yes. Why? Because Han Seojun didn't trust digital records. Suga nodded. He kept paper files. Then we go there. RM looked at the time. We need to be careful. Jin grabbed his jacket. We've been careful all night. That's not what I mean. RM's voice hardened. If someone is inside our circle, we can't assume everyone around us is safe. The words changed the atmosphere. Jin slowly put his jacket on. Then we go alone. All 7? J-Hope asked. Yes, Suga looked at him. That makes us easy to track. Splitting up makes us easier to isolate. Jungkook nodded. Stay together. They left the building through a private exit. The city was already awake. Cars moved through wet streets. People hurried under umbrellas. Nobody looking at them would have guessed that 7 exhausted men were carrying a secret that could change everything. They reached the old production facility 40 minutes later. The building looked abandoned from the outside. Windows were dusty, signs had faded. Weeds pushed through cracks in the pavement. Jin stared at it. He was here. Taehyung had said he saw the person here. Yes, Jungkook replied. Then we search every floor. The main entrance was locked. Suga found a side door that had been forced open recently. Someone's been here. RM crouched near the lock. Fresh scratches. Jimin swallowed. Could be them. They entered. The smell of damp concrete filled the corridor. Every sound echoed. Their footsteps seemed too loud. Jin called Taehyung. Nothing. They moved deeper into the building. On the second floor, they found an old security desk. Dust covered everything except one monitor. The screen was on. A live camera feed showed an empty room. J-Hope approached. "This is impossible." "Why?" RM asked. "This building has no active power." Suga looked at the cables. "Someone restored it." Jungkook noticed a red light blinking. "Camera," he pointed. "We're being watched." Jin looked up. "Then let them watch." He stepped directly in front of the camera. "If you're listening, bring him back." Nothing happened. Then the monitor changed. A message appeared. "You came." Jin's face hardened. "Where is he?" Another message. "Room 14. Jungkook looked at RM. "There is a room 14. They searched the floor plan. The building had 14 numbered rooms, but room 14 was located in the basement. "Let's go." The basement stairs were narrow. Water dripped from pipes above. Their footsteps echoed. When they reached the bottom, they saw a corridor with 14 metal doors. Room 14 was at the end. Its door was open. Jin rushed forward. "Wait." Jungkook grabbed his arm. "Don't. That's him." "We don't know." "I know." Jin pulled free and entered. The room was empty. A chair stood in the center. A single lamp hung from the ceiling. On the chair was Taehyung's jacket. Jin stopped. "No." Jimin covered his mouth. Jungkook walked toward the chair. He picked up the jacket. It was still warm. "He's been here." "Recently?" Suga asked. Jungkook nodded. "Very." Jin turned in circles. "Where is he?" A speaker crackled above them. Then Taehyung's voice came through. "Taehyung." Jin froze. "Taehyung, don't come any closer." Jin's eyes filled with tears. "Where are you?" "Not here." "Then where?" "I don't know." "What do you mean you don't know?" "They moved me." Jin stepped toward the speaker. "Who?" Taehyung's voice became quieter. "The person you remember." Jin's face changed. "Seojin." Silence. "Taehyung." "He isn't the only one," the speaker crackled. "There are people who have been watching us for years." RM stepped forward. "Taehyung, listen to me. We will get you out." "No." "What?" "Don't." His voice sounded desperate. "Don't trust everyone." Suga looked around. "Can you tell us who?" "I can't." "Why?" "Because he's listening." The lights went out. Jin shouted, "Taehyung." A loud metallic crash echoed from the corridor. Jungkook turned. "One's here." Footsteps thundered. They rushed out of room 14. A figure ran down the corridor. Jungkook chased him. Jin followed. The figure disappeared through a door. Jungkook pushed it open, empty, only a staircase. He looked down. "He's going up." They ran. The footsteps grew louder. Suddenly the figure appeared above them. He threw something down the stairs. It exploded with a burst of smoke. Jimin coughed. Jin shouted, "Jungkook." Jungkook stumbled. Suga grabbed him. "I'm fine." "Stay back." "No." Jungkook pushed forward. They reached the top floor, but the figure was gone. A window stood open. Rain blew inside. On the floor was another photograph. This one showed Jin and Taehyung years earlier. They were standing outside the dorm. On the back, someone had written, "You were supposed to remember." Jin stared at it. His hands shook. "I don't understand." Jungkook looked at him. "You will." "How?" "We'll find out." Then Jin noticed something in the photograph. A person stood in the background. A young man watching them. "That's him." Everyone turned. "Who?" Jin pointed. "That's Han Seojin." RM stared. "Are you sure?" "Yes." Jin's voice became quiet, but he wasn't supposed to be there. Suga looked at the photograph. "When was this taken?" Jin checked the date printed faintly on the bottom. His face went pale. "The night Taehyung disappeared." Nobody spoke. The image suddenly made everything more disturbing. Han Seojin had been watching them before the incident. Threat hadn't started after Taehyung vanished. It had started before. Jungkook looked at Jin. "Now we know why he was targeted." Jin shook his head. "No." "What?" "This isn't about Taehyung." He pointed at the photograph. "Look at where Seojin is looking." Everyone leaned closer. Seojin wasn't looking at Taehyung. He was looking directly at Jin. Jin's face drained of color. "Me." Suga whispered. "He was watching you." "Why?" Jin asked. No one answered. Then the building's speakers came alive again. A voice spoke, calm and unmistakably familiar. "Because you were the one who was supposed to remember." Jin froze. Jungkook stared at the ceiling. "Who are you?" The voice laughed softly. "You still haven't figured it out." Jin shouted, "Where is Taehyung?" "Safe. Bring him here. You don't give orders." "Then what do you want?" Silence. "The truth." Jin's expression tightened. "About what?" "About the night you told Taehyung to leave." Jin closed his eyes. "I already admitted it." "No." The voice became colder. "You admitted what you remember." Jin opened his eyes. "What does that mean?" "It means your memory is incomplete." Everyone went silent. "There was another person there that night." Jin's breathing stopped. "Who? You know him?" I don't. You do. The voice ended. Jungkook stared at Jin. Taehyung. Jin shook his head. I don't know. Maybe you don't remember. Jin looked at him helplessly. What if I did something? Jungkook stepped closer. You wouldn't. How do you know? Because I've seen you. Jin's eyes filled with tears. That doesn't mean you know everything. No, Jungkook shook his head. But I know you. Jin looked away. The others stood around him silent. Then Jimin approached and took Jin's hand. We'll remember together. Jin looked at him. What if I don't like what we find? Jimin squeezed his hand. Then we'll face it together. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. Somewhere in the abandoned building, a door slammed. The seven of them stood together in the dim corridor, surrounded by old memories, unanswered questions, and the growing realization that the past they thought they had survived might never have ended. But nobody left. Nobody blamed Jin. Nobody blamed Taehyung. And when Jungkook finally looked toward the dark staircase, his voice was quiet but firm. We're bringing him home. Jin nodded. Together. For the first time since Taehyung disappeared, the word did not sound like hope. It sounded like a promise. The door slammed shut behind them, and for one terrifying second Jin was certain he had heard Taehyung scream. Taehyung. He lunged toward the sound, but Jungkook caught him by the arm before he could disappear into the darkness. Wait. Let go of me, Jin shouted, violently pulling against his grip. That was him. I heard it too. Jungkook's voice was just as desperate, but we don't know where it came from. I don't care. Jin shoved him away. He's in here. And if you run blindly, you're going to get yourself trapped. Then let me. Jin's voice cracked so sharply that everyone froze. If he's hurt, I don't care what happens to me. Jungkook stared at him, breathing hard. I care. Jin's expression faltered. What? I care what happens to you, Jungkook said. I care what happens to all of us, and I care what happens to Taehyung. That's why we don't panic. Jin looked away, his hands trembling. You sound like RM. Then maybe listen to me for once. Suga stepped between them. Enough, both of you. His voice was low but carried through the corridor. We're standing in a building someone has prepared specifically for us. We don't know the exits. We don't know how many people are here. We don't know whether Taehyung is actually here, so stop fighting each other. Jin stared at the floor. I'm sorry. Jungkook exhaled slowly. Me too. RM raised his flashlight and scanned the corridor. Everyone stays together. J-Hope nodded. Where did that sound come from? Jimin pointed toward the far end. There. A narrow passage disappeared around a corner. The walls were stained with moisture and old pipes ran overhead like black veins. Jungkook moved first with Suga behind him, then RM, J-Hope, Jimin, Jin, and finally the others closing the formation. Every few steps they stopped to listen. The building seemed to breathe around them. Water dripped somewhere deep inside. Wind whistled through a broken window. Then came another sound, a faint metallic click, Taehyung's signal. Jin's head snapped up. That's it. Jungkook nodded. I heard it. They followed the sound until they reached a steel door. A tiny observation window had been painted black from the inside. Jungkook touched the handle. Locked. Jin stepped forward. Move. Taehyung. Move. Jungkook hesitated, then stepped aside. Jin kicked the door once. The lock held. He kicked it again. The metal groaned. Suga joined him. Together they struck it until the lock finally broke. The door flew open. Inside was a small room containing nothing but a chair, a table, and an old tape recorder. No Taehyung. Jin's face fell. No. Jimin entered slowly. Maybe he was here. On the table was a piece of paper. RM picked it up. It's a transcript. Of what? J-Hope asked. RM read the first line and stopped. It's a conversation. Jin moved closer. Between whom? RM looked at him. You and Taehyung. Jin frowned. That's impossible. Listen. RM began reading. Jin, if you don't want to be here, then say it. Taehyung, I don't know. Jin, then decide. Taehyung, I'm trying. Jin, you can't keep making everyone worry. Taehyung, I'm sorry. Jin, stop apologizing. Jin's face went white. That's not the whole conversation. I know. RM turned the page. There's more, he continued. Taehyung, I think someone is following me. Jin, who? Taehyung, I don't know. Jin, then don't make yourself paranoid. Taehyung, I'm not imagining it. Jin, you're tired. Taehyung, please believe me. Jin, Taehyung, enough. Jin stepped backward. No. Jimin looked at him. Taehyung, I don't remember saying that. Suga's eyes narrowed. Then perhaps you didn't. Jin looked at him. What are you saying? Suga pointed to the tape recorder. Play it. J-Hope pressed the button. Static filled the room. Then Jin's younger voice emerged. You can't keep making everyone worry, Taehyung's voice followed. I'm sorry, Jin's voice. Stop apologizing. Then silence. The recording continued. Taehyung, I think someone is following me. Jin, who? Taehyung, I don't know. Jin, then don't make yourself paranoid. Taehyung, I'm not imagining it. Jin, you're tired. Taehyung, please believe me. Jin, Taehyung, enough. The recording stopped. Jin stared at the machine. I said it. His voice was barely audible. You did, RM said gently, but there's something wrong. What? The recording has been edited. Suga took the recorder. Look at the tape. He opened the casing. It's been cut. Jin shook his head. Then what did I say originally? Nobody knew. Jungkook looked at the paper again. There are missing lines. He pointed toward the transcript. Look at the timestamps. RM checked. You're right. There are gaps. Someone removed parts of the conversation. Jin closed his eyes. Why? A speaker hidden somewhere in the ceiling crackled. Because the truth was inconvenient. Everyone looked up. The voice returned. You remember enough to feel guilty but not enough to understand. Jin shouted, show yourself. The voice laughed. You always were impatient. Where is Taehyung? Closer than you think. Bring him out. You don't get to make demands. Then what do you want for you to remember? Remember what? The voice became quiet. The person who stood beside you that night. Jin's eyes widened. He looked at the others. Who was there? Jimin asked. Jin shook his head. I don't know. You do, the voice said. You simply buried it. The speaker went silent. Jungkook turned toward Jin. Think. Jin stared at the floor. I can't. Try. I don't know, he shouted. I don't know. His voice echoed through the room. He grabbed his hair with both hands. I remember Taehyung being upset. I remember arguing with him. I remember him leaving. I remember waiting. I remember him coming back. That's all. Suga watched him carefully. What about before he left? Jin swallowed. Someone came to the dorm. J-Hope's eyes widened. Who? Jin's breathing became shallow. I don't know. Was it staff? I don't know. A friend? I don't know. A stranger? Maybe. What did they say? Jin closed his eyes. A fragment appeared in his memory, a hallway, a shadow, a voice, a silver ring catching the light. Someone asked for Taehyung. Jungkook stepped closer. Who? I don't know. What happened? I told them he wasn't there. And Jin opened his eyes. They said they knew. The room became silent. Knew what? RM asked. Jin's lips trembled. They knew he was afraid. Jimin whispered, how? I don't know. Jin sat down heavily. Then Taehyung came out of his room. And what did the person do? They looked at him. Only that, yes. Jin's face tightened. But Taehyung looked terrified. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Did he know them? I think so. What happened next? I told the person to leave. Jin paused. They said something. What? They said he'll come with us eventually. Jimin covered his mouth. And you let them leave. Jin looked devastated. I didn't think it was serious. You were a trainee, J-Hope said gently. You didn't know. I should have. You couldn't have known. Jin shook his head, but I did know something was wrong. The guilt in his voice was crushing. Jungkook crouched in front of him. Taehyung. Jin looked at him. You didn't cause this. What if I did? You didn't. What if telling him to leave made him easier to control? It didn't. How do you know? Jungkook held his gaze. Because he came back. Jin's eyes filled with tears. Maybe he came back because he had nowhere else to go. Then we give him somewhere to go now. Jin stared at him. Jungkook's voice softened. Home. Jin looked down. I want him home. Then let's bring him home. Suddenly the lights flickered. The tape recorder turned on by itself. A different recording began. Taehyung's voice. If you're hearing this, then you've found the room. Jin stood immediately. Taehyung. The recording continued. I don't know how long they'll let me speak, so listen carefully. The person who took me is not Han Seojun. Everyone froze. Suga looked at RM. What? Taehyung's voice continued. Seojun disappeared years ago. Someone is using his name. Jin whispered, then who? The recording continued. The person behind this has been studying us for a long time. They know our routines. They know our fears. They know our history. Jungkook listened without blinking. And they know one thing better than anyone. Taehyung paused. They know how much we love each other. Jimin's eyes filled with tears. Taehyung, that's their weapon. The recording crackled. They don't need to hurt us directly. They only need to make us doubt each other. RM's expression darkened. That's why the messages said someone inside the circle. Exactly. Taehyung's voice continued. But don't misunderstand me. I don't think one of the members is betraying us. Jin exhaled. Thank God. I think someone has been manipulating people around us. Suga looked toward the door. Staff. Maybe, Taehyung continued, but there's something else. The recording paused. Someone gave them information. Jungkook's eyes narrowed. Who? Taehyung's voice dropped. I don't know, Static, but I know where the information came from. RM stepped closer to the recorder. Where? The recording continued. The old rehearsal archive. J-Hope frowned. The archive. Yes. Why? Taehyung's voice became faint. Because that's where they found the recordings. Jin's face changed. What recordings? Our private rehearsals. Suga's expression hardened. Someone has been collecting them. For how long? Taehyung continued. Years. Nobody moved. They know how we speak when we're angry. They know how we react when we're scared. They know who comforts whom. They know who fights. They know who feels guilty. Jin looked at Jungkook. That's why they knew what to say. Jungkook nodded. They've been studying us. The recording ended. Silence filled the room. Then a small red light appeared on the wall. A camera. Jin stared directly into it. You wanted us to hear that? The speaker crackled. Yes. Why? Because Taehyung wanted you to. Jin's eyes narrowed. Where is he? Safe. You keep saying that because it's true. Then prove it. A screen dropped from the ceiling. It flickered to life. Taehyung appeared. He was sitting in another room. His face looked exhausted, but he was conscious. Jin moved toward the screen. Taehyung. Taehyung looked directly into the camera. His eyes widened. Hyung. We're here. You shouldn't have come. We're not leaving without you. Taehyung shook his head. Please listen. No, Jin's voice broke. You listen, we're bringing you home. Taehyung's lips trembled. I don't know if I can. You can. What if they hurt you? Then they hurt all of us. That's not what I want. I don't care. Taehyung's eyes filled with tears. Jin, you think I can lose you again? Jin's voice cracked. After all those years, after everything, no, Taehyung lowered his head. I'm sorry, stop apologizing. Jin laughed through tears. You always do that. Taehyung looked at him. You remember. I remember enough. Not everything. Then help me remember. Taehyung stared at him for several seconds. There was someone else that night. Jin nodded. I know. It wasn't Seojin. I know. It was someone we trusted. Everyone froze. Jungkook looked at RM. Who? Taehyung shook his head. I can't say. Jin stepped closer to the screen. Why? Because if I say the name, they'll know I remembered. Who? Hyung, please. Who? Jin shouted. Taehyung flinched. Jin immediately lowered his voice. I'm sorry. Taehyung closed his eyes. I need you to trust me. I do. Then don't ask. How can I protect you if I don't know? By staying together. Jin nodded. We are. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. Jungkook, I'm here. Don't let Jin come after me alone. Jin frowned. Why are you telling him that? Taehyung smiled faintly. Because you always run toward danger. Jin almost laughed. You learned that from me. Exactly. Jungkook nodded. I won't let him go alone. Taehyung looked at all of them. I miss you. Jimin began crying openly. We miss you too. J-Hope wiped his eyes. Come home. Taehyung's face softened. I'm trying. The screen went black. Jin turned toward the camera. Bring him out. The speaker remained silent. Then a final message appeared on the screen. 1 hour. Jin stared. 1 hour until what? The message changed. 1 hour until the door opens. Suga's expression hardened. That's a trap. RM nodded. Obviously. Jungkook looked at the others. But it's also an invitation. Jin stared at him. To what? The final room. Suga looked at the floor plan. There is one room we haven't checked. RM's eyes widened. Room 12. Why 12? Because the old archive was in the 12th floor records wing. J-Hope frowned. This building only has 12 floors. Exactly. They moved quickly. The stairwell seemed endless. Jin kept looking at his watch. 48 minutes. Jungkook stayed beside him. Don't think about the time. Easy for you to say. No, it isn't. Jin looked at him. Jungkook's expression was hard. I'm terrified. Jin's anger softened. You don't look it. Neither do you. I'm falling apart. So am I. They continued climbing. On the 12th floor, they found a corridor lined with old archive rooms. Most doors were locked. One stood open. Room 12. Inside were hundreds of boxes, old hard drives, tapes, photographs, and folders. J-Hope whispered, this is insane. Suga picked up a folder. These are private. RM opened another. Rehearsal schedules. Jimin found a photograph. That's us. Jin took it. It was from years ago. Someone had written notes beneath each member's face. Jungkook protective. Jimin emotional mediator. J-Hope avoids confrontation. RM carries responsibility. Suga distrusts authority. Jin protective but guilt-driven. Taehyung vulnerable to isolation. Jin's hands shook. They've been studying us. Jungkook looked at the notes. For years. Then he found his own file. He opened it. The first page contained a sentence. If Jungkook is isolated from Taehyung, his judgment becomes predictable. Jungkook's face hardened. They know. Jin looked at him. What? They know how close we are. He closed the file. They used it. A sound came from behind them. Everyone turned. The door closed. The lights went out. Jimin screamed. Stay together, RM shouted. A voice spoke from the darkness. You wanted the truth. Jin stepped forward. Show yourself. A light came on. A man stood at the far end of the archive, not Han Seojin, someone younger, someone they had seen many times before. Jin's face went blank. No, Jungkook stared. You, the man smiled sadly. You finally remember me. Jimin whispered his name. The others stared in disbelief. He had worked around them for years. He had attended rehearsals. He had spoken with them. He had helped arrange schedules. He had stood close enough to hear private conversations. Jin's voice shook. You were there that night. The man nodded. Yes. You talked to Taehyung. Yes. You followed him. Yes. Jungkook stepped forward. Why? The man's expression changed. Because I was trying to protect him. Jin's eyes narrowed. By kidnapping him? I didn't kidnap him. Then where is he? Safe. Where? You'll see. Suga stepped forward. Who is controlling you? The man laughed. Nobody. Then why? His smile disappeared. Because I believe someone had to make you remember what happened. RM's voice became cold. What happened? The man looked at Jin. You were told Taehyung was unstable. Jin froze. What? You were told he wanted to leave. You were told he was a danger to the group. Who told me that? Han Seojin. Why? Because he wanted Taehyung isolated. Jin's face became pale. But why? The man looked toward the archive. Because Taehyung had discovered something. What? He found recordings. Jungkook's expression hardened. Of what? Conversations. Whose? People inside the company. RM stepped forward. About what? The man looked at them. About money, contracts, manipulation, people being pressured into silence. J-Hope stared. And Taehyung found them. Yes. So they tried to make him look unstable. Yes. Jin's eyes filled with tears. And I believed them. You believed what you were told. I abandoned him. You didn't know, I still did it. The man looked at him. That's why you've been easy to manipulate ever since. Jin's face hardened. What do you want from me? I want you to forgive yourself. Jin stared at him. You don't get to decide that. The man smiled faintly. Maybe not. Suddenly the lights came back. A door opened behind the man. Taehyung stepped through. Jin stopped breathing. Taehyung. Taehyung looked exhausted. His arm was still bandaged. He walked forward slowly. Jin crossed the room in seconds and pulled him into a hug. Taehyung collapsed against him. Jin held him tightly. I'm sorry. Taehyung buried his face against Jin's shoulder. I know. I'm so sorry. I know. Jungkook stepped closer. Taehyung looked over Jin's shoulder. Their eyes met. Jungkook smiled. Taehyung smiled back. For a moment everything else disappeared. Jimin rushed forward next. J-Hope followed. RM and Suga stayed close. The seven finally stood together again, but the man remained nearby. Jin looked at him. It's not over. No, the man nodded. But now you know the truth. Suga looked at the files. Not all of it. The man smiled. No. Jin tightened his hold around Taehyung. We don't need to know everything today. Taehyung looked at him. Thank you. Jin shook his head. Don't thank me. He touched Taehyung's hair gently. Just stay. Taehyung closed his eyes. I will. Jungkook looked around the archive. The danger hadn't magically disappeared. There were still unanswered questions, missing records, people who had manipulated them, and a past that had left scars deeper than any of them realized. But Taehyung was standing beside them. That mattered. Jin looked at each member, then at Taehyung. No more secrets. Taehyung nodded. No more disappearing. Jungkook smiled. And no more screaming. Jin gave him an offended look. I screamed once. Everyone laughed quietly, even Taehyung. The sound was small, tired, and imperfect, but it was real. Outside, the rain had finally stopped. Pale sunlight filtered through the dusty windows of the abandoned building. Jin looked toward the light and then back at Taehyung. Let's go home. Taehyung nodded. Together? Jin smiled. Always. They left the archive side by side. Nobody pretended the past was fixed. Nobody claimed the danger was completely gone. But Taehyung was no longer alone. Jin was no longer carrying his guilt alone, and Jungkook no longer had to stand between them to keep them from breaking apart. Whatever came next would have to face all 7 of them together. And for the first time in years, that felt stronger than fear.